the screen.
Yep, you can see
Everyone
that
can see
fine.
it? Fantastic. Okay. So, folks, today, going towards the end of financial year, we're going to be talking about a topic that everyone hates, but some of you have heard me talk about before. It's the language of business. The language of business, of course, is numbers. So, as usual, no rainbows, no unicorns, no BS, just stuff that you can actually take and use in your business right away after this session today. There's a fair bit to get through. I know we don't have a member spotlight, but I want to be respectful of all your time. So I will go fast, but please, if you've got questions, save them for the end. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the profitability coach. My business is called the Elite Business Institute. And over my shoulder, you'll see the names of the other businesses that run underneath that. I'm a certified advisory board chair. I'm an active governing board chair. I'm on the board of a couple of community banks. I've won some awards as a marketer. I speak, I talk. I had 30 plus years as a C-suite executive here and in Southeast Asia. And I'm one of the few business continuity planning experts still around in the country. What I want to do today is hopefully help you set up your next financial year so you don't get a result like this one. If you have a look there, you'll see first quarter income $91,000, expenses 110, loss 19,000. No one wants to see a loss happening on things. So let's have a look at that. The thing is, just show me by hand, how many of you have actually got a budget for your business? Just stick your hand up in the work. Yeah, okay, there's a couple. All right, few of you. Okay. If you don't, then I've got to ask you, what's your excuse? You know, there's a couple of excuses that spring to mind. One is, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm out there talking to clients. I'm making money. Okay. The other one is arithmophobia. I'm scared of numbers. I don't really understand them. I'm a business person and I'm good at what I do, but numbers is not part of it. The thing is, you need to understand is that numbers are literally the language of business. If you don't understand some basic numbers in your business will not achieve everything it is capable of doing. If you know your numbers, you can make much better decisions in your business in terms of where you spend money, where you support things, what you do with staff or with clients, marketing, etc. It enables you to measure your performance. There's nothing worse than creating a big marketing campaign, going out there, but not knowing how to track the numbers because you don't know if it's actually working for you or not. To enable you to understand what's working, what's not quicker. And quite frankly, knowing your numbers is the mark of a true business owner. Unfortunately, a lot of people spend a lot of time doing this when it comes to knowing their numbers. They don't want to know it. They're embarrassed by it. They're scared. So we're going to be talking about the B word. And the B word is budget. You need one to control your business. They're easy to do. You know, your bookkeeper or your accountant can, and quite frankly, should help you put one together. Something is better than nothing, and no budget means literally no control and much less chance of success. There's a number of ways you can budget. One of the ways I teach my clients is to do the 10-4-12 method. Thing is, most people will keep the numbers simple. Say, I want to do $120,000 next year. There's 12 months, that's 10 grand a month. Sounds easy. Problem is that in Australia in particular, there are at least 2 months in every industry which are dead quiet. Now, most of the time in Australia, we run from probably about the end of first week of December to almost middle of February, where we shut down, unless you're in retail or hospitality. So what that means is really you've got 2 months of the year where you're not going to be making much money. So the smart money, the smart people, what they do is they go, I've got 120 grand a year I want to do. I've got 2 months that aren't going to run very well. So I will do 120 grand in 10 months. So instead of 10 grand a month, I'll budget for 12 grand a month. And then the 2 months where I'm now on quiet, December, January, December through the middle of February, I'll call any money I make there my holiday fund money. It'll go into my holiday fund and pay for a nice holiday, but it's gravy on top. So that's the best way to budget, particularly if you're in Australia, is whatever number you want, divide it by 10, which means you've got February to the end of November to make your money for most industries. And the other 2 months is just gravy or extra profit. There are 3 sets of numbers that all business owners need to know and understand. You need to know your P&L, your profit and loss. You need to understand the value your customers bring to your business. And you need to understand the 3 things you can do to actually scale your business. So your profit and loss numbers. This is what a profit and loss statement looks like. It's broken up across months. They're scary to look at and all that sort of thing, but they're really quite easy to read. In fact, in the whole profit and loss statement, there are four main areas. The top line is revenue, how much money has come into the business. The next one is called the COGS, or variable cost line. What do we have to spend to make that money? And that leaves you with your gross profit. So revenue in minus the costs of getting that sales leave you your gross profit money. And then out of that, you take your fixed expenses like your rent, your car payments, salaries, wages, etc. And that leaves you with a thing called net profit. And they're the only things you really need to understand on your budget. So the more you make it revenue, the more profit you'll have, so long as your costs are under control. So here's a real quick example of a P&L. So as I said to you, we look at our revenue, we look at the costs, what it costs us to actually achieve that revenue, and there's our gross profit. So we bought $1 million in sales, and we end up with $573,800 gross profit at 57%. That's pretty goddamn high, right? You can see it cost us 42% of our sales to actually get them, and there's our gross profit percentage there. Our total expenses are $488,000, so we subtract them from our gross profit. So total expenses from gross profit, that leaves us with our net profit of $85,000, which is 48% in fixed costs, but an 8% what they call NOP, net operating profit, which is pretty damn healthy. All right, supermarkets used to run on 2%. I ran the first supermarket in Australia to get to 3.5 cents. They run higher than that now, but 8.6% is still nothing to sneeze at in a monthly thing. Here's a couple of quick formulas for you to look at. So your revenue minus your cost of good or your variable costs gives you your gross profit. So $1 million minus 426 gives you 573, or 100% minus 42% gives you a gross profit of 57%. Pretty easy stuff. Your gross profit minus your fixed expenses equals your net profit. So we saw there your gross profit was 573,000. Your fixed costs were 488, leaves you 85,000 net profit, and you can do the same thing with your percentages, leaving them there. There's a thing with your P&L called a chart of accounts. Now, this is where you have to put some work in initially, because a chart of accounts lists everything that is a cost to the business or a revenue stream. So you just have a look there at expenses, the very top one, accountancy costs, then advertising, amortization. You don't have to understand all these, but you need to have a good chart of accounts that captures everything for you and isn't, quite frankly, full with rubbish. So super guarantee, that's probably not a line that we need for many of us here. Rubbish removal, maybe, I don't know. Royalty deductions, are you paying royalties to anyone? Does that need to come out? It's worth your time sitting down with your bookkeeper or your accountant and asking them to show you the chart of accounts that they're using for your business, and go through it line by line, get them to explain what they're putting into each line, because sometimes they put things in the wrong line. But more importantly, you can look at some of the lines and go, I don't need it. No, I don't have any lease payments, or I don't have any subscriptions to the magazines anymore. I'm not paying income and protection insurance, etc. But a chart of accounts is something that you need to put some time in, maybe once a year, just to make sure it's running right. The best accountants are proactive ones. Most accountants, sadly, are historians. They're really, really good at telling you what happened. They're not good at telling you what's going on, and they're certainly lousy at telling you what's coming up down the track. So if your accountant is a historian and you meet with him once every 3 months or only around tax time, he's not doing his job, and you need to find a new one. A good accountant will do the following things. They will help you set up your budget. All right, you've got to give them figures, but they'll set it up. They'll give you a timely profit and loss. By timely, I mean, so we're in May. So by the end of the first week in June, my accountant will have to me my complete profit and loss for the month of May. That's what they should do. A week after the end of the month, you should get your profit and loss from your accountant, all right? You should get a thing called a budget variance report, which tells me any item in that chart of accounts which has gone above or below budget. In my case, 3%, I've set it for. You can make it 5%. And they should give you that budget variance, highlighting the things that have gone up and down. If they're a good accountant, they might even be able to give you a reason for why. They should give you a monthly cash flow forecast. So it's June, how much money, cash do I expect to come in June? A profit forecast, how much profit do I expect to have at the end of the month if my budget comes off? And again, you look at that sensitivity thing. It saves you doing a line-by-line check if they do this budget variance report or the sensitivity check. But by the same token, you should, if not every month, every second month, go through your P&L and just have a look through and have a questioning attitude about what needs to be done. People talk about markup and margin and they get them confused. They are two different things, all right? Margin is literally the profit percentage you make on sales, and markup is the profit percentage on cost. So markup's calculated by taking your cost of goods sold. So I sell something for $10, or I make something for $10, and I'm going to sell it for 10%. So cost of goods plus 10% means I'm going to be selling it for $11. It's gone up there. Sales minus your cost of good equals your gross profit margin, which you can then decide your markup. Here's another example for it. The difference is if you want a 10% margin, say whatever you make, you want to have a 10% margin. The markup is 11%. 20%, the markup is 25%. If you want a 30% margin, it's a 42.9% markup over your cost of goods. If you want a 50% margin, the markup percentage is 100%. So if it costs you $10 to make something and you want a 50% margin, you're selling it for $20. Simple as that. And you can create other markup percentages simply by doing how much do I want to make, divide it by the cost of goods, and that'll give you a percentage. So just bear that in mind. So if you want a 30% margin, you've got to take your cost price and add 42.9% on top of it. It's important you know your margins, right? Lots of businesses I see create a margin simply by going, okay, it cost me $10, I'll sell it for 12. Not understanding that that extra $2 they make above the cost of producing, it's also got to cover their fixed costs. So you need to play with your margins carefully. So cost of goods sold can also be called COSP, which is cost of services provided. So in my case, I don't actually make a lot of things, but I provide services. So what does it cost me to provide services? So I look at things like Zoom, it costs me things there. I look at time, I look at whatever. You need to be aware, they're still the same thing. So if you don't make something, it's not necessarily cost of goods, it's cost of services, same thing. In any case, they're the costs directly associated with making a product to sell or by delivering your service. It doesn't include your fixed costs like rent, salary, insurance, etc. The three sets of numbers, right? The next one is you need to understand the value your customers bring to your business. Can anyone here tell me how much one of their clients is worth to them on average? Just stick your hand up if you know the average transaction value of your client. Okay, if you don't, this makes it hard for you to budget and also control things. Here's a bit of customer math for you. Do you know how much it costs your business to get a new customer? Is that marketing cost, time you spend on the phone, that type of thing, all right? How much do you make from every transaction with that customer? So you get a new customer and you sell them X. How much money do you make from it in terms of profit, not just revenue? How long do your customers stay with you? Do they buy from you once? Do they buy from you 9 times? Do they stay with you for years? And how many new customers will your existing customers bring to you over time? The best source of new business is actually your existing customers to bring things to you. There's 3 things you need to understand about customers, right? One is a thing called ATV, which is average transaction value. So if you sell $100 worth of products and you sold 20 products, the average transaction value is 5. It's simply that. It's dividing your total sales by the number of transactions will give you an average transaction value. So you can say every sale I make is roughly worth $5. Lifespan is how long someone stays a customer with you. And customer lifetime value is literally the average transaction value multiplied by the number of times they'll buy for you over the period of time they spend with you. So if your average transaction value is $10 and someone does 20 transactions with you over 3 years, that tells you what they're worth to you. So $10 times 20, there's $2,000. Over 3 years, a customer's worth $2,000 to you. It's really important you understand this number because when you want to set a sales budget for your business, I'm not talking an overall, but a sales budget, you can use these things to make it easy. So say you want to do 100 grand and you know your average transaction value is $10. So you got 10,000 sales to do. Okay. The answer is how many units or services you need to sell. You can check your history as well if you want to get a bit more sophisticated. If you've got a good P&L history, you can have a look and find the months every year where sales are high and sales are low. So if you were someone running a gelato shop, obviously your sales would get very, very high starting in October when summer comes in, and they'd probably collapse a little bit when you get to April, May, June. But you'd be able to put that into your sales budget and adjust it accordingly. All right. Plug in your numbers appropriately, and you can also use this to produce your profit because you can understand your average transaction value. You can do a product mix method. Say you've got, now in my case, I've got 47 different products and services I can sell to people. I only talk ever about 2 or 3 of them. And when I budget for 2 or 3 of them. So say you've got 2 products and you want product 1 to be 40% of your sales and product 2 to be 20% of your sales. So between them, it covers 60% of your total sales. So if your sales target's 100 grand, product 1's target is 40K. You want to sell $40,000 worth of that product. And if you know your average transaction value, that'll tell you how many customers and how many transactions you need to make. If product 2 is 20% of your sales, well, there's 20K. That still leaves 40K to make, so you can add more products there. The key thing is if you know what your product sells for and you know what percentage of your business you want it to be or it's going to be, it's easy for you to apply that to the budget amount. So like I say, 40% of 100K is 40 grand, really simple. That's how much of product number 1 I want to sell. These are the only 3 things you can actually do to control, build, and scale your business. There's only 3 macro levers. There is revenue, capacity to deliver, and cost control. So revenue, you've got to become what they call top line driven, and that's how much money comes in. That's your cash flow line. Your business should be focused. Every business on this call should be focused on generating as much as they can at the top line, because the top line is what pays for everything underneath it. Every variable cost, every fixed cost, every bonus, every bit of capital expenditure, every bit of new equipment is all paid for what you bring in on the top line. So you've got to do that. How do you increase your top line? We can increase prices. All right. You would have to lose 25% of your existing clients if you raise, before it affect the money coming in, if you raise your prices by 10%. So if I put my prices up 10%, I'd make more money, but I'd have to lose 25% of my existing clients before the extra money I was earning was the same as I'm earning now. All right. You can add products or services, expand your range and your offering. You can decrease the utility of products, not necessarily something people here can do, but years ago, Johnson & Johnson created a product called Soap on Tap. Everyone knows that, and it was a great product. Everyone loved it. The problem was it was so well done that people weren't buying it as quickly as J&J wanted to meet their sales targets. They realized that the only way they could do that was the little pipe, the hole in the pipe where the soap actually came out. They expanded that by 33%. And suddenly people started going through the soap on tap a lot more quickly and they started selling more. So that's called decreasing the utility of a product. What they'd done is they'd played a game to get people to use it quicker. You can upsell, you can downsell, you can cross-sell. We are all familiar with the McDonald's thing. Would you like fries with that order? Would you like a larger Coke? That type of thing. You can sell more to existing clients. If you've got a perishable item or you've got a program, so Dr. Chris teaches people how to present well on that. So selling more to existing clients is he might actually run something which is industry specific. So they do the general course first, then you offer an industry specific program for someone to do. So they might be an accountant. So this is how accountants should be talking to other accountants, for example. And the other thing, of course, is you get more clients. Capacity is about capacity to deliver. What's your capacity to deliver your product or service? All right. So if Fiona got 30 new clients for websites tomorrow, I don't know if you could cope. If you can, fantastic. I couldn't cope with 30 new clients tomorrow unless I threw them into a group coaching program. But you need to understand your capacity to deliver, because that affects your business in the sense that if you've overpromised and under-delivered and you do it consistently, people talk and your business will shrivel up and die. So you must always be aware of your capacity. Now, if you've got too much new business coming in, and my God, wouldn't we all love that? You create a wait list, right? Back in the 1970s, there was the big disco, Studio 54 in New York City. The first 3 weeks they opened it, they put bouncers on the door, they had all the lights on, they had music thumping, and they told people it was full, they couldn't come in. The fact was the place was empty. But what they did was they created a wait list situation. So on the first day of week 3, when they opened the doors, they had people queued up around the block, and then it stayed that way for months and months. So wait listing is a great thing, great way to control your capacity, and it actually helps your credibility. If I turn around and I go, Lana, I'd love to help you, but I can't help you for another 8 weeks because I'm over committed to my clients at the moment. Lana's going to go, wow, gee, he's got a waiting list. It's worthwhile, right? So that moves your credibility up. You need to decide what would you need to deal with 20, 30, 40 or 50 or even more percentage increase in the number of clients you've got to do. What effect on cost does a 20% increase have? Now, none of us here are in manufacturing, but if you were in manufacturing, if you had a 20% increase in sales, that may blow out your variable costs. It might reduce your margins depending on what you're doing. It's not always the case that making more drives costs down. Sometimes making more drives costs up, but you need to think about what would your costs look like if you've got an extra 30% worth of business coming in. You've got workforce planning, casuals. If you're a restaurant or something, right, you've got a 20% increase, you're going to need more people waiting on tables. Can you get them? And there's the mechanics of things like that. How quickly? In my case, I write a lot of reports for my clients. If I suddenly got a 20% increase in the number of reports, then I'm going to be digging into my family time, and I'm going to be staying to work on Sundays again, because that's the only way I can find the hours necessary to do it. So think about your capacity to deliver, and be aware of the fact if you get a big upshoot in clients wanting your services above what you can do, then what you simply do is create a wait list. You be honest with them, tell them you can't help them at the moment, but I'm happy to put you on my wait list. And you just act like it's the most normal thing, and it'll work well for you. The third lever is cost control. You need to understand your costs, the variable and your fixed costs, okay? If your variable costs go up with more sales, so again, you're in a restaurant, one of the variable costs that will definitely go up is a cleaning cost, because you're going to go through more napkins, more service, all that type of stuff. You're going to spend more money on detergent. Why? Because you're cleaning more dishes. So you need to be aware of your variable costs which increase as your sales go up. You need to be looking at your fixed costs to see if you can reduce them. Now, fixed costs are things like rent, insurance, salaries and wages go through there because they often don't fluctuate very much. Car lease payments, accountants' fees, all that sort of stuff goes in there. But you need to look at them and see if they could be reduced. One of the things I offer to new clients is I guarantee them that I can probably in 45 minutes find them at least $5,000 in costs that they shouldn't be paying. To be honest, on average, depending on the size of business, it's 30 to 70 grand, I find. And it's simply by going through their costs and pulling out the things they don't sell. You'd be amazed how many small business owners have gym memberships still being taken out, and they haven't been to the gym for 3 years, okay? The other thing is people don't get fresh quotes. What happens, insurance companies are brilliant at this. They send you a renewal notice a week before it's due, so we just go, oh, better pay it. Whereas what you should do is put your renewal dates for all your insurance in your calendar and put it about 3 weeks before and get some new quotes, right? I get my professional indemnity and public liability insurance from the same broker and have done for nearly 10 years. But every year I still go through the exercise to get quotes to see if anyone can meet them. They haven't so far, which is great. But most businesses are paying too much for their insurances because they just automatically renew instead of getting quotes or ringing up the insurance company and saying, is that the best you can do for me? Because they want to keep you, they'll do it. It's like if you've got your phones with Optus and you ring them up and tell them you're going to go to Telstra or Vodafone, guess what? There'll be a great deal waiting for you if you push them. So you look at that. And the line by line thing's important. Are there things that you're paying for you don't need anymore? All right. If you're running MyOb and Xero and your accountant uses Xero, then you don't need MyOb anymore, for instance, okay? Is there software you're still paying for or apps that your business no longer uses, but yet you're still paying a monthly or an annual renew thing? Think about that. Is your website being hosted, and is the cost for your hosting still the same as it was 2 years ago, or has it gone up every year? Does it need to be look at that? It's a big link. Main thing is if you put industry benchmarks into the ATO website, it will actually give you all the lists by industry of some of the benchmarks there, profit margins, that type of thing. It doesn't cover everyone on this call, I can tell you that. It doesn't cover business coaching terribly well, but it's worthwhile just having a look at that sort of thing. So look, guys, that's it. Thank you for your attention. I know it's a bit of a dry, boring thing. The key thing I've got to tell you is if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. The better you understand your numbers, and the better you understand, more importantly, the value your customers are to your business, the better business you're going to have, and the easier it will be for you to make decisions. Now, whether it's a decision to spend more money on marketing, or whether it's a decision to shut it down or let go of whatever, numbers are the language of business. And if you don't speak that language, your business is going to be in a hard place, hard time. That's it. Thanks, folks. Any questions?
Any questions for Geoff? Okay. Geoff, you put a large link in there a moment ago for the industry standards.
Yep.
Have you got access to that to put it in the chat box so people can go and check?
Well, now that I'm not showing my screen, I can pull it up. Yep.
Excellent. Because it's knowing where we can save and cut off the off the top. It's always best we can do the longer we last in business. So looking at their profits and looking at what things are costing us, getting that balance is really important. So as you asked before, how many people have got their budgets? How many people actually, there's a question now, after Geoff's done the presentation, who's got their budgets, and look at them in the way in which Geoff's spoken about today. Yeah, so you've got a few hands before, you're not getting any hands right now.
I was just going to say, hang on, guys, what's happened?
Yeah.
All right. So just be aware that the ATO links change quite often. So that was current probably 2 months ago. If it's not there, you can still go through there and just put industry benchmarks. That's the key thing, industry benchmarks with the ATO. That's the key thing to look for if you're doing it.
Yeah, page not found. So it looks like they have updated it.
Okay, well, thank you. Now I have to update track it down and update mine as well. So that's okay.
And it looks like Fiona's just found one. Let's see if that one's the right one. Let's take it. Yep. Small business benchmark. So the one that Fiona's just put in. Thanks a lot for that, Fiona.
It might be a starting point. It may not be exactly what Geoff was sending us to, but it's a guidepost.
If you go to that one that I've just popped in there now, that will take you to all the industry benchmarks, and it will do benchmarks by industry, small business benchmarks, taxation statistics, industry benchmarks, stats, etc., etc. There's a whole heap there on that particular page. So anyway, it's worthwhile, depending on the industry, to have a look. It's nice. Most of us, when we're in small business people, we get so caught up in our business, we forget to keep an eye on our competition. It's not something we should, oh, woe is me, they're so dreadful. But you should see what your competition's doing. And if one of your competition is running their cost structure 10 or 20% below you, you should be trying to find out how the hell they're doing it. If they're running their cost structure 10 to 20% higher than you, then you can go, great, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it gives me a competitive advantage. The worst thing you can do is ignore or pretend you don't have competition. You've got to understand them. But anyway, I know it's really dry, boring topic, and I mean, I don't like it. But if you don't speak this language, you're not going to make as good a decision as you should for your business. Anyway,
well, that's it. And as you said, finding that information out is important. At the same time, if your competition is operating at 10% less than you, then there's a good chance that they're going to reduce their prices to make sure they get, because that's the way most businesses do it, undercut everybody else. Quickest way to the grave as far as it goes, but they will undercut it. Then you look at that and you realize you've got to undercut yours, and now you're living on nothing at all. So it's really important to get this side of it right first, and then look at the upside on how you make more money as well. Okay, I'll just stop the recording.